Dr. Leora Venn stood at the edge of the observation deck, her gills fluttering softly as she gazed out at the shimmering expanse of Thalassa's turquoise oceans. The planet was her home, a world where sunlight filtered through crystalline waters, and coral cities stretched endlessly beneath the waves. It was beautiful, serene, and alive, but for Leora, it often felt incomplete. She had spent years studying the intricate ecosystems of her people, uncovering secrets about interspecies relationships that no one else dared to explore. Yet there was one mystery she could not solve: why her body refused to cooperate with the most natural thing in the universe. Leora sighed, turning away from the view. Her husband, Ethan Hayes, was waiting for her back at their shared quarters. He had been patient, supportive, and loving throughout their marriage, but she knew he must be struggling too. They had discussed having children early on in their relationship, dreaming of raising a family together despite their differences. But reality had come crashing down when they learned that, biologically speaking, their union was impossible. Thalassans were an aquatic species, evolved over millennia to thrive underwater. Their bodies functioned differently from humans, particularly when it came to reproduction. While human pregnancies relied on specific hormonal balances within a terrestrial environment, Thalassan biology required entirely different conditions that made cross-species conception seem like science fiction. And so, after countless tests and consultations, the doctors had delivered the verdict. Leora's body simply wasn't capable of carrying offspring, let alone producing viable hybrids, with a human partner. The news had hit them hard. For weeks afterward, Leora buried herself in her work, trying to distract herself from the ache in her chest. She poured all her energy into studying xenobiology, hoping to find answers somewhere in the data. Maybe if she understood more about how life adapted across species, she could figure out a way around the biological barriers keeping her and Ethan apart. But deep down she knew it was futile. Science didn't bend to wishes or dreams. It only followed facts. Ethan, however, wasn't ready to give up just yet. Unlike Leora, who accepted the diagnosis as final, he couldn't shake the feeling that there had to be another way. He loved Leora deeply, and the thought of never seeing her hold their child broke his heart. So while she worked tirelessly in her lab, he began researching alternative solutions in secret. Late at night, when Leora was asleep, he scoured old archives and scientific journals, searching for anything that might offer hope. One evening, as he sifted through dusty records stored in Earth's digital libraries, he stumbled upon something promising. Hidden among forgotten experiments from humanity's early days of space colonization were references to bioengineering techniques designed to create hybrid organisms. These methods had been used centuries ago to help humans adapt to extreme environments such as toxic atmospheres or barren wastelands. Though controversial and eventually abandoned due to ethical concerns, the technology had shown potential during its brief existence. Intrigued, Ethan reached out to Dr. Elias Cade, a reclusive scientist known for his groundbreaking work in synthetic biology. Dr. Cade had once been celebrated as a pioneer in genetic engineering, but his radical ideas had pushed him to the fringes of the scientific community. When Ethan explained his situation, Dr. Cade listened intently before agreeing to meet in person. The two men arranged a discreet rendezvous aboard a neutral station orbiting Thalassa. Over steaming cups of algae tea, Ethan laid out his plan. "I know this sounds crazy," he admitted, running a hand through his hair. "But I can't just sit back and do nothing. If there's even a chance we can make this work." Dr. Cade nodded thoughtfully, stroking his beard. "It won't be easy," he said finally. "Combining your DNA with hers will require precision far beyond anything attempted before. And even if we succeed, there's no guarantee the embryo will survive, or that her body will accept it. But it's possible?" Ethan pressed, his voice tinged with desperation. "Possible, yes," Dr. Cade replied cautiously. "But you need to understand the risks. This isn't just about creating life. It's about rewriting the rules of biology itself. Are you prepared for that?" Ethan hesitated, weighing the implications. He thought of Leora's radiant smile, the way her eyes sparkled when she talked about her research, and the quiet sadness that lingered whenever the topic of children arose.
Finally, he nodded. I have to try. Back on Thalassa, Leora remained oblivious to Ethan's efforts. She continued her routine, dividing her time between the lab and her duties as a leading xenobiologist. Yet despite her determination to
stay focused, she couldn't ignore the growing distance between them. Ethan seemed distracted lately, often disappearing for hours without explanation. At first, she assumed it was stress related to his diplomatic responsibilities, but the pattern persisted, gnawing at her suspicions. One day, unable to shake the feeling that something was amiss, Leora decided to confront him. She found him hunched over his desk, surrounded by stacks of papers and holographic projections glowing faintly in the dim light. Startled, Ethan quickly minimized the displays, but not before she caught a glimpse of diagrams labeled hybrid embryo development. "What is this?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Ethan froze, realizing he'd been caught. For a moment, he considered lying, but then he saw the hurt in her eyes and knew he couldn't deceive her any longer. Taking a deep breath, he confessed everything: the late-night research, the meeting with Dr. Cade, the risky experiment they were planning. Leora listened in stunned silence, her mind racing. On one hand, she was touched by Ethan's unwavering dedication to their dream. On the other, she couldn't help but feel uneasy about the implications. Wasn't this exactly what the doctors warned against? Playing with forces beyond their understanding? "I don't want you risking your life, or ours, for something that might not even work," she said firmly, though her voice betrayed her conflicted emotions. "I'm not asking you to agree," Ethan replied gently. "I'm just saying we owe it to ourselves to try. Don't you think our love deserves that much?" Leora looked at him, torn between fear and hope. In the end, she realized she couldn't deny him or herself the chance to chase their impossible dream. With a reluctant nod, she agreed to hear Dr. Cade's proposal. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that their bond was strong enough to weather any storm. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden ripples across the ocean, Leora felt a flicker of optimism. Perhaps miracles weren't confined to fairy tales after all. Perhaps with enough courage and determination, they could rewrite their destiny and create a future neither of them ever imagined possible. This part introduces the central conflict, establishes the characters' motivations, and sets the stage for the story's progression. Let me know if you'd like further refinements. The decision to meet Dr. Elias Cade in person was not made lightly. Leora and Ethan had spent hours discussing the implications of pursuing such an unconventional path, weighing the risks against their shared dream of starting a family. While Leora remained hesitant, she couldn't deny the spark of hope that flickered within her, a fragile glimmer that refused to be extinguished. For Ethan, it was more than just hope. It was a lifeline, a chance to prove that love could transcend even the most rigid boundaries of biology. Dr. Cade's laboratory was located on a remote research station orbiting Thalassa, far from prying eyes and public scrutiny. The facility itself was unassuming, its metallic exterior blending seamlessly with the surrounding void of space. Inside, however, the air buzzed with activity. Rows of advanced equipment lined the walls, humming softly as they processed data and conducted experiments. Holographic displays floated above workstations, showing intricate diagrams of DNA strands and molecular structures. When Leora and Ethan arrived, Dr. Cade greeted them warmly, his sharp features softened by a genuine smile. Despite his reputation as a controversial figure, he exuded an aura of calm professionalism. He led them to a private conference room where holograms of hybrid organisms, part plant, part animal, and other unimaginable combinations, hovered in mid-air. Each image represented years of painstaking research, yet none had ever been fully realized beyond the experimental stage. "Before we proceed," Dr. Cade began, folding his hands on the table, "I want both of you to understand what this entails. What you're asking me to attempt has never been done before, not with your species at least." Leora nodded solemnly, her gills fluttering faintly as she struggled to keep her emotions in check. "We know it's risky," she said quietly, But if there's even a small chance, it's not just about risk, Dr. Cade interrupted gently. It's about uncertainty. Even if we succeed in creating a viable embryo, there's no guarantee it will survive, or that your body will accept it. And then there are the ethical questions. Are you prepared for the consequences? For the judgment of others? Ethan reached out and took Leora's hand, squeezing it reassuringly. We've thought about all of that, he said firmly. This isn't just about us. It's about proving that two different worlds can come together to create something new. Something beautiful. Dr. Cade studied them for a moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he nodded. Very well. Let's begin. Over the next several days, the trio dove headfirst into the planning phase. Dr. Cade explained the process step by step, using simplified terms to ensure Leora and Ethan understood every detail. The first challenge would be extracting samples of their DNA and merging them into a stable hybrid form. This required cutting-edge nanotechnology capable of manipulating genetic material at the molecular level. Once the hybrid genome was created, it would need to be housed in a synthetic environment until it developed into an embryo. But here's the tricky part, Dr. Cade admitted, pulling up a hologram of a biomechanical device. Your body, Leora, is designed for aquatic reproduction, which is fundamentally incompatible with human biology. To bridge that gap, we'll need to construct an artificial womb, a biomechanical system that mimics the conditions necessary for gestation. Leora stared at the hologram, her heart pounding. She had always known her body was different, but hearing it laid out so clinically made her feel alien in her own skin. Still, she forced herself to focus. How does this machine work? She asked, her voice steady despite the turmoil brewing inside her. It combines elements of both Thalassan and human physiology, Dr. Cade explained. Using nanobots, we'll simulate the hormonal and environmental factors needed to sustain the embryo. Think of it as a cocoon, protecting and nurturing the life growing inside. While the concept sounded promising, the reality was far more daunting. Every stage of the process carried significant risks, not only to the embryo but also to Leora herself. If her immune system rejected the biomechanical womb, it could lead to severe complications or worse. Yet despite these dangers, she found herself nodding in agreement. She trusted Ethan implicitly, and though Dr. Cade's methods were radical, his expertise was undeniable. As preparations continued, Leora threw herself into the project with renewed determination. She spent countless hours reviewing data, studying the biomechanical designs and learning everything she could about interspecies genetics. Her background in xenobiology proved invaluable, allowing her to contribute ideas and insights that might otherwise have gone unnoticed. For the first time in months, she felt a sense of purpose, a reason to believe that their impossible dream might actually come true. Ethan, meanwhile, juggled his diplomatic duties with frequent visits to the lab. His role as Earth's ambassador often kept him busy, but he made sure to stay involved in every aspect of the experiment. He attended meetings, reviewed progress reports, and acted as a mediator between Leora and Dr. Cade whenever disagreements arose. Though he lacked the scientific knowledge of the others, his unwavering optimism helped keep morale high during the long, grueling days. Despite their best efforts, setbacks were inevitable. Early attempts to merge their DNA resulted in unstable genomes that disintegrated almost immediately. Each failure left them disheartened, forcing them to revisit their calculations and refine their techniques. Yet with each iteration, they grew closer to success. Slowly but surely, the pieces began falling into place. One evening, after another exhausting day in the lab, Leora and Ethan sat together in silence, staring out at the stars through the station's observation window. The vastness of space stretched endlessly before them, a reminder of how small and fragile their existence truly was. "What if it doesn't work?" Leora whispered, breaking the quiet. "What if we've been chasing something that was never meant to happen?" Ethan turned to her, his gaze filled with resolve. "Then we'll face it together. No matter what happens, I'm proud of us, for trying, for believing. That's what matters." His words brought tears to her eyes. but they were tears of gratitude, rather than despair. In that moment, she realized that their journey wasn't just about creating life, it was about reaffirming the strength of their bond. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them side by side. Back in the lab, Dr. Cade worked tirelessly to perfect the final stages of the process. He knew the stakes were higher than ever, not just for Leora and Ethan, but for the future of interspecies relations. If successful, their experiment could pave the way for groundbreaking advancements in bioengineering, opening doors previously thought closed forever. But failure would mean more than dashed hopes. It would reinforce the notion that some barriers were simply insurmountable. Finally, after weeks of relentless effort, the breakthrough came. Using a combination of nanotechnology and advanced genetic algorithms, Dr. Cade managed to stabilize the hybrid genome. The resulting embryo was unlike anything seen before, a delicate fusion of human and thalassan traits, glowing faintly under the microscope like a tiny beacon of hope. When Leora saw it for the first time, her breath caught in her throat. It was real. Against all odds, they had created life. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she looked at Ethan, who was equally overcome with emotion. "We did it," she murmured, her voice trembling with awe. "We actually did it." But even as they celebrated their monumental achievement, they knew the hardest part was yet to come. The embryo still needed to develop, and the biomechanical womb had to be implanted into Leora's body. There were no guarantees it would work, and the risks remained as high as ever. Yet standing there amidst the hum of machinery and the glow of possibility, they felt ready to face whatever lay ahead. For now, they allowed themselves a moment of triumph, a fleeting glimpse of the miracle they had created. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, they reveled in the knowledge that their love had defied the odds and given rise to something extraordinary. This section builds tension and deepens the emotional stakes while advancing the plot. Let me know if you'd like further adjustments. The days following the creation of the hybrid embryo were a blur of activity. Leora, Ethan, and Dr. Cade worked tirelessly to prepare for the next critical phase of their groundbreaking experiment. The stabilized embryo, glowing faintly under its protective casing, represented not only hope but also immense responsibility. It was fragile, delicate, a tiny spark of life that required precise care to survive. Yet as they moved forward, the weight of what they were attempting became increasingly clear. Dr. Cade had explained the process in painstaking detail during one of their late-night planning sessions. Implanting the biomechanical womb into Leora's body will be the most dangerous part, he said, his tone serious. Her immune system may reject it entirely, or worse, her body might react unpredictably. We need to monitor her closely every step of the way. Leora listened intently, her gills fluttering softly as she processed the information. She had always known this journey would come with risks, but hearing them laid out so clinically made her heart race. Still, she refused to let fear dictate her decisions. This was her chance to carry a child, to experience something she had once thought impossible. And more importantly, it was her chance to prove that love could transcend biology. Ethan sat beside her, holding her hand tightly. He could see the determination in her eyes, but he also noticed the flicker of apprehension. "Are you sure about this?" he asked gently, his voice filled with concern. "If anything goes wrong?" "I'm sure," Leora interrupted, her voice firm despite the tremor beneath it. "We've come too far to turn back now. I want this, Ethan. For us." Her words silenced any lingering doubts Ethan might have had. He nodded, squeezing her hand reassuringly. Together they turned to Dr. Cade, who was already preparing the equipment for the procedure. The implantation took place in a sterile operating room deep within the research station. The walls were lined with monitors displaying real-time data, streams tracking Leora's vital signs and the condition of the biomechanical womb. Dr. Cade worked methodically, his hands steady as he guided the device into position. The biomechanical womb resembled an intricate lattice of nanobots and synthetic tissue designed to mimic the functions of a natural uterus while adapting to Leora's unique physiology. As the procedure unfolded, Leora lay still on the operating table, her mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. She focused on Ethan's presence nearby, his calm demeanor helping to ease her anxiety. When the operation was complete, Dr. Cade stepped back, wiping sweat from his brow. "It's done," he announced, his voice tinged with both relief and caution. "Now we wait." The waiting period proved to be the hardest part. In the days that followed, Leora's body began to adjust, or at least that was the hope. At first, there were no immediate signs of rejection, which everyone took as a positive sign. However, the challenges soon became apparent. Leora experienced intense physical discomfort, her muscles aching as though she were carrying a heavy burden. Her energy levels plummeted, leaving her fatigued and irritable. Worst of all, she struggled with waves of nausea and dizziness that left her bedridden for hours at a time. Despite these setbacks, Leora refused to give up. She spent her days resting when necessary, but remained actively involved in monitoring the embryo's progress. Using advanced imaging technology, they were able to observe the tiny life growing inside the biomechanical womb. Each scan revealed new developments, the formation of rudimentary organs, the pulsing rhythm of a developing heartbeat. These small milestones gave Leora strength, reminding her why she had chosen to endure such hardship. Ethan did everything he could to support her. He brought her meals, helped her move around when she was too weak to walk, and stayed by her side during the long sleepless nights. But even he couldn't shield her from the emotional toll of the experiment. There were moments when Leora broke down, overwhelmed by the enormity of what they were trying to achieve. "What if we're wrong?" she whispered one night, tears streaming down her face. "What if this isn't meant to happen?" Ethan wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close. "Then we'll deal with it together," he said softly. "But don't forget why we started this. We're doing this because we believe in each other and in our future." His words provided comfort, but they couldn't erase the doubts that lingered in Leora's mind. As the weeks passed, the strain began to show not just on her body, but on their relationship as well. Arguments arose over minor issues, fueled by exhaustion and stress. Dr. Cade tried to mediate whenever tensions flared, reminding them that their shared goal was worth the sacrifices they were making. Still, the cracks in their resolve grew harder to ignore. Meanwhile, news of their experiment began to leak beyond the confines of the research station. Rumors spread like wildfire across Thalassa and Earth, sparking heated debates about the ethics of creating hybrid life. Some hailed the project as a monumental step toward interspecies unity, while others condemned it as reckless meddling with nature. Protesters gathered outside key diplomatic offices, demanding answers and accountability. The media seized on the controversy, broadcasting sensationalized reports that painted Leora and Ethan as either heroes or villains depending on the narrative. For Leora, the public scrutiny added another layer of pressure. She had always valued privacy, preferring to focus on her work rather than seeking attention. Now, however, she found herself thrust into the spotlight, her personal struggles becoming fodder for endless speculation. Ethan shielded her as much as possible, deflecting questions from reporters and issuing carefully worded statements to maintain control over the narrative. But the constant barrage of opinions weighed heavily on both of them. Amid the chaos, Dr. Cade remained steadfast, urging them to stay focused on the task at hand. "Ignore the noise," he advised during one particularly tense meeting. "The only thing that matters right now is ensuring the embryo survives. Everything else can wait." His advice resonated deeply with Leora. She realized that the external criticism paled in comparison to the internal battle she was fighting, the fight to keep going no matter how difficult things became. With renewed determination, she pushed through the pain and fatigue, drawing strength from the tiny life growing inside her. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden ripples across Thalassa's oceans, Leora and Ethan stood, together on the observation deck of the research station. Below them, the planet shimmered like a jewel in the vastness of space. They held each other silently, finding solace in the beauty of their surroundings. "We're rewriting history," Ethan murmured, breaking the quiet. No matter what happens, we've already changed the world. Leora smiled faintly, leaning into his embrace. I just hope we're ready for whatever comes next. They both knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. The embryo was growing stronger, but so were the complications. Leora's body continued to struggle with the demands placed upon it, and the ethical storm surrounding their experiment showed no signs of abating. Yet standing there amidst the stars, they felt a sense of peace, an understanding that they were part of something greater than themselves. As the night wore on, they returned to the lab, ready to face whatever tomorrow might bring. Their journey was far from over, but for now they allowed themselves a moment of quiet triumph. Against all odds, they had created life, a miracle born of love, science, and sheer determination. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. This section delves deeper into the physical and emotional challenges faced by the characters while maintaining tension and engagement. Let me know if you'd like further refinements. As the weeks turned into months, Leora's body continued to adapt or fight against the biomechanical womb nestled within her. The process was far from smooth. Every day brought new challenges, both physical and emotional. Her once vibrant energy had been replaced by a constant state of exhaustion, leaving her dependent on Ethan for even the simplest tasks. Yet, despite the toll it took on her, she refused to give up. Each time she looked at the scans of the growing embryo, a tiny flicker of life thriving against all odds, she found the strength to push forward. The embryo itself was developing rapidly. Its growth accelerated compared to natural pregnancies. Dr. Cade monitored its progress closely, adjusting the parameters of the biomechanical womb to ensure stability. This is unprecedented, he admitted during one of their daily check-ins. Its cellular structure is evolving faster than we anticipated. If this continues, we'll need to prepare for an early delivery. An early delivery sounded simple enough in theory, but the reality was far more complex. The hybrid child would require specialized care immediately after birth, blending elements of both thalasson and human biology. Dr. Cade warned them that the transition from the artificial environment of the womb to the outside world could be perilous. Any misstep might jeopardize not only the baby's survival but also Leora's health. While Leora focused on enduring the physical strain, Ethan grappled with the mounting pressure from external forces. Public opinion had reached a fever pitch, with debates raging across both Thalassa and Earth. Supporters hailed their experiment as a beacon of hope for interspecies cooperation, while critics accused them of playing God. Protesters gathered outside key institutions, demanding transparency and accountability. Diplomatic tensions escalated, threatening to overshadow the scientific breakthrough they were striving to achieve. Ethan worked tirelessly to manage the fallout, issuing statements and holding press conferences to address the concerns. This isn't about defying nature or ethics, he emphasized during one televised appearance. It's about love, about proving that two different worlds can come together to create something extraordinary. His words resonated with some, but others remained unconvinced, accusing him of prioritizing sentimentality over reason. Amid the chaos, Leora tried to shield herself from the noise. She knew the controversy swirling around them was inevitable, but it still stung. Late at night, when the station grew quiet, she often found herself scrolling through news feeds, reading comments from strangers who judged her choices without understanding her motivations. Some called her selfish for risking her life, while others labeled her courageous for pursuing a dream many thought impossible. The conflicting opinions left her feeling torn between pride and doubt. One evening, as she lay resting in their quarters, Ethan entered with a tray of food. He set it down gently beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You shouldn't read those things," he said softly, his voice tinged with concern. "They don't know what we're going through. All that matters is us. And our baby." Leora sighed, closing her eyes briefly. "I know, but it's hard not to wonder if they're right. What if we're making a mistake? What if this changes everything? For worse, instead of better?" Ethan sat beside her, taking her hand in his. "We've made mistakes before, haven't we? But we've always found a way to fix them, to move forward. This is no different." Yes, there are risks, but there's also so much potential. Imagine the kind of world our child will grow up in, one where differences aren't barriers but opportunities. His optimism helped steady her wavering resolve. Still, the doubts lingered, gnawing at the edges of her mind. To distract herself, she immersed herself in preparations for the baby's arrival. Together with Ethan, she began designing a nursery that blended elements of both their cultures. Soft, flowing fabrics reminiscent of Thalassan coral cities adorned the walls, while earth-inspired mobiles hung above the crib, casting gentle shadows across the room. It was a small act, but it gave her a sense of purpose, a reminder that their efforts were building towards something tangible. Despite their preparations, the final stages of the pregnancy proved increasingly difficult. Leora's body struggled to keep pace with the embryo's rapid development, causing intense pain and frequent episodes of weakness. During one particularly harrowing night, she collapsed while attempting to walk to the lab. Ethan rushed to her side, calling for Dr. Cade immediately. When they arrived at the medical bay, Dr. Cade conducted a thorough examination. His expression grew grave as he reviewed the data. "Her body is reaching its limit," he explained. "The stress of maintaining the biomechanical womb is taking too great a toll. We need to deliver the baby soon, within the next few days, or risk losing them both." The news hit them like a tidal wave. They had known the risks all along, but hearing them stated so bluntly made the stakes feel unbearably high. Leora clutched Ethan's hand tightly, her eyes wide with fear. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice trembling. "We prepare," Dr. Cade replied firmly. "I'll oversee the delivery personally, and we'll have a team ready to assist with any complications. You've done everything you can, Leora. Now it's time to trust the process." Over the next 2 days, the trio worked around the clock to finalize their plans. Equipment was calibrated, protocols rehearsed, and contingency measures put in place. Despite the tension in the air, there was also a sense of anticipation, a shared belief that they were on the verge of something monumental. Finally, the moment arrived. Leora was wheeled into the delivery suite, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and dread. Ethan stayed by her side, holding her hand and whispering words of encouragement. Dr. Cade stood at the helm, directing the team with calm precision. The procedure itself was unlike anything traditional medicine had ever seen. Instead of natural childbirth, the biomechanical womb would be carefully extracted and opened, allowing the baby to emerge under controlled conditions. As the operation began, Leora closed her eyes, focusing on Ethan's steady presence. She thought of all they had endured, the sleepless nights, the endless arguments, the sacrifices they had made for this moment. Whatever happened next, she knew they had given it their all. Hours passed in a haze of activity. Finally, a soft cry pierced the silence, a sound so pure and unexpected that it brought tears to everyone's eyes. Dr. Cade held up the newborn, a delicate creature whose skin shimmered faintly under the light. Its features bore traces of both parents. Gill-like slits along its neck, a hint of webbing between its fingers, and eyes that glowed softly like underwater pearls. "It's alive," Dr. Cade announced, his voice filled with awe. "And stable, for now." Leora reached out weakly, her arms trembling as she cradled the baby for the first time. Tears streamed down her face as she looked at Ethan, who was equally overwhelmed with emotion. "She's perfect," he whispered, his voice choked with joy. "Absolutely perfect." For a brief moment, the weight of the world seemed to lift. They had done it. They had created life where none was thought possible. Yet even as they basked in the miracle of their daughter's birth, they knew the journey was far from over. The child would require constant care, and the ethical storm surrounding their experiment showed no signs of abating. But for now, they allowed themselves to revel in the beauty of the present. As dawn broke over the research station, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink, Leora held her daughter close, marveling at the tiny being who represented everything they had fought for. Against all odds, they had proven that love could transcend boundaries, not just biological ones, but cultural and societal ones as well. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, as a family. This section builds suspense, while highlighting the emotional highs and lows of the characters. Let me know if you'd like further refinements. The birth of their daughter, Amara, marked the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with both wonder and uncertainty. From the moment she entered the world, Amara defied expectations. Her hybrid nature made her unlike any being ever seen before, blending traits from both Thalassan and human biology in ways that fascinated and bewildered those around her. Her skin shimmered faintly under light, reminiscent of Thalassa's glistening oceans, while her eyes glowed softly like underwater pearls. She communicated not through cries or words, but through melodic hums that echoed the songs of Leora's people, yet carried an unmistakable warmth that resonated with Ethan's humanity. For Leora and Ethan, the first days after Amara's arrival were a whirlwind of emotions. Exhaustion mingled with awe as they adjusted to life as parents. Every movement, every sound their daughter made felt like a miracle, a testament to the impossible journey they had undertaken together. Yet, alongside the joy came challenges. Amara's accelerated growth rate hinted at unforeseen complications, forcing them to remain vigilant. Within weeks, she began exhibiting abilities that neither species possessed individually. She could manipulate water currents with a flick of her hand, creating swirling patterns that danced across surfaces. At the same time, her cognitive development surpassed anything documented for either humans or Thalassans, leaving even Dr. Cade astonished. "She's extraordinary," Dr. Cade remarked one evening as he observed Amara during a routine checkup. "Her body seems to be adapting faster than we anticipated, almost as if it's rewriting its own rules. It's unprecedented." Leora nodded, watching her daughter play with droplets of water suspended mid-air. "But is it safe?" she asked, hesitantly. "Will she always be this way? Different from everyone else?" Dr. Cade hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "Different doesn't mean dangerous. What we're seeing here is evidence of adaptability, a fusion of strengths from both your species. But yes, her uniqueness will present challenges. She'll need guidance and support as she grows, especially when others inevitably react to her differences." Ethan placed a comforting hand on Leora's shoulder. "We'll figure it out," he said firmly. "Just like we've done with everything else, we'll make sure she knows how special she is, not because she's different, but because she's ours." As word of Amara's existence spread, public reaction intensified. The controversy surrounding her creation evolved into something far more complex. On one hand, supporters hailed her as a symbol of unity, a living bridge between two worlds that had long been divided. They argued that her presence offered hope for future interspecies cooperation, paving the way for greater understanding and collaboration. On the other hand, critics grew louder, accusing Leora and Ethan of recklessness and warning of the dangers posed by such unnatural experimentation. Protests erupted once again, this time fueled by fear of the unknown. Amid the chaos, Leora and Ethan decided to take a bold step. Rather than hiding from the scrutiny, they chose to address it head-on. With Dr. Cade's assistance, they organized a global broadcast, an opportunity to share their story directly with the public. Sitting side by side in front of cameras, they spoke openly about their struggles, their motivations, and their hopes for the future. "We didn't set out to change the world," Leora began, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "We simply wanted to build a family, to create something beautiful out of love. Yes, what we did was unconventional, even risky. But isn't that what progress looks like? Taking chances, pushing boundaries, believing in possibilities others say are impossible." Ethan took over, his tone passionate and unwavering. "Our daughter represents more than just science or biology. She represents connection, the idea that no matter how different we may seem, we can find common ground. And yes, there will be challenges ahead, for us, for her, for everyone. But isn't that true of any great endeavor? Isn't that what makes life worth living?" Their message struck a chord with many, sparking conversations that transcended borders and cultures. While skepticism remained, There was also a growing sense of curiosity, and perhaps even acceptance. People began to see Amara not as a threat, but as a reminder of humanity's capacity for innovation, compassion, and resilience. Back on Thalassa, life slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy, or as close to normal as it could be for a family like theirs. Amara continued to thrive, her abilities expanding in fascinating ways. By the age of 6 months, she could communicate telepathically with aquatic creatures, calling schools of fish to dance around her fingertips. She also developed a deep connection with Earth's flora, coaxing plants to grow and bloom simply by touching them. Each day brought new discoveries, filling Leora and Ethan with equal parts pride and wonder. Yet raising Amara wasn't without its difficulties. As she grew older, her differences became more apparent, not just physically, but socially. Other children struggled to relate to her, unsure how to interact with someone who seemed so alien yet so familiar. Leora and Ethan worked tirelessly to ensure she felt loved and accepted, teaching her to embrace her uniqueness while fostering empathy for others. They knew the road ahead would be challenging, but they were determined to equip her with the tools she needed to navigate a world that might not always understand her. One afternoon, as they watched Amara play near the edge of Thalassa's coral reefs, Ethan turned to Leora with a thoughtful expression. "Do you think we made the right choice?" he asked quietly. Bringing her into all of this, Leora smiled softly, her gaze fixed on their daughter as she laughed, her melodic hums blending with the gentle lapping of waves. "I don't know if it was the right choice," she admitted, "but I do know this. She's brought us closer to each other, to our worlds, to ourselves. And maybe that's enough." Ethan nodded, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Together they stood in silence, marveling at the tiny being who had changed everything. Years passed, and Amara grew into a remarkable young girl. Her hybrid nature became a source of inspiration rather than division, uniting people across species and planets. Scientists studied her abilities, hoping to unlock new possibilities for interspecies relationships. Artists immortalized her in paintings and songs, celebrating her as a symbol of unity and hope. Through it all, Leora and Ethan remained steadfast, guiding her with love and wisdom. In time, Amara herself became a pioneer, using her gifts to heal rifts between communities and foster understanding. She traveled across galaxies, bridging gaps where none had existed before. Yet no matter how far she ventured, she always returned home, to the parents who had dared to dream beyond the limits of biology, and to the planet where her story had begun. As the sun dipped below Thalassa's horizon, casting golden ripples across the ocean, Leora and Ethan stood together, watching their daughter swim gracefully among the coral reefs. In that moment, they knew their sacrifices had been worth it. Against all odds, they had created something extraordinary, not just a child, but a legacy that would endure for generations to come. And as they held each other close, bathed in the fading light of another perfect day, they realized something profound. Sometimes the greatest miracles aren't born of certainty, but of courage. This final section ties together the themes of love, resilience, and unity, bringing the story to a satisfying and uplifting conclusion. Let me know if you'd like further refinements.